Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Gillian Berry, and today we have an amazing guest in store for you guys. We have Paul Nissan, and he is from the Raw Life Health Show YouTube channel. He's amazing. He's been raw vegan for over 25 years. So I have some amazing questions in store for Paul. He is great. So you guys are going to want to stick around to the end. Give this video a big thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe if you don't already, and let's get right into it. Hey Paul, how's it going?
Going great. Thanks for having me here today.
That's great. Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on. I'm so excited to talk to you. So, first of all, I would love to start out with what led you to raw veganism, I guess, over 25 years ago.
Okay, so when I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, I was very competitive in sports, and I got 19 years old. I got really sick with some stomach illnesses, and I went to the doctors and the hospitals, and they finally diagnosed me with inflammatory bowel disease, also known as ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, inflammation of the colon. Back then, a lot of people didn't know what that was, but that's what it is, inflammation of the colon. There was no known cure. They told me at 20 years old, I was a high risk for colon cancer. I might have it by the time I'm 30 years old. And they also told me there was no known medical cure for ulcerative colitis. And so I was taking their medication and doing what I had to do, but somebody told me diet had a lot to do with my condition. My doctor said that's not true, but my doctor wasn't getting me better. If she was getting me better, I would have listened to her, but I wasn't getting any better. So I tried changing my diet and I got better. And I switched first to a junk food vegan diet, then to a vegan diet. And then I moved down to West Palm Beach, Florida, near the Hippocrates Health Institute. And I ran into Brian Clement, who's the owner there, in a store giving a lecture. And he told me about the raw foods. And I asked my doctor in New York if that would help me. She said no. So I knew I was on the right path. I tried doing the raw food and I got completely better. And I pretty much moved back to New York, and I met a lot of people there doing this. I became a raw food chef in Caravan of Dreams, which is one of the world's best vegan restaurants around. And I put raw food on the menu there, really. And I did that for several years. Then I had my own restaurant called The Fourth Dimension, which was a really big 100% raw vegan restaurant in New York City. And then I traveled the world and I interviewed people that had been eating a raw vegan diet for a long time. And this was like 20 years ago or so. And I become friends with a lot of them. And one of the people I became really good friends with actually lived right down the block from me, and I didn't even know it. And his name was Dr. Fred Bishy. And at the time, he'd been raw already for 40 years, and now he's raw for over 60 years. And he's still a great friend of mine, and my mentor, and I learned a lot from him. And and yeah, so I went on to write a bunch of other books, and continuing to do this. So that's what led me to getting into it. It was an illness, and yeah, so.
That's incredible. And you're so accomplished. That's so amazing. So, the illness led you to get into it. And then I'm assuming, other than healing the illness, you experienced other benefits as well. So, I would love to know like how you felt after being fully raw versus how you felt before, and like the benefits you experienced and how different you felt being fully raw versus being like maybe even a junk food vegan.
Well, before I was sick, I thought I was doing okay. Then after I got sick and I went raw, there were different times I had to try different ways of doing a raw food diet because there are different ways. But each year I feel better than I did the last. It's absolutely amazing because it's supposed to be the opposite.
Mhm.
I mean, I feel better now than I did way back then. And when I first started, I wasn't doing it the way I'm doing it now. So I even feel better now than when I first went raw. But yes, when I first went raw, I needed less sleep. And I've always, been competitive in sports. And I'm a gym rat. I always like going to the gym and exercising. And so I just noticed I was able to do more and have less pains afterwards. But I've always been a sharp person in my mind, being able to do more than one things at one time. I could just do it now for a longer time. And
Mm.
I just have more energy than most people. A lot of my friends are half my age and they can't even keep up with me. And yeah, so I just feel great eating this way, and it works. It really does. And the only time I see people having problems when they make the switch, other than the natural detoxification, is when they're doing it and making common mistakes. And we could talk about that later, but that's, and I just learned so much. And even in the last couple of years, I learned a lot. And I'm just so looking forward to what I'm going to learn more in the future. But it really does help me to have friends, those people I interviewed over 20 years ago, becoming friends with them. And I could always ask them questions and see their experiences. So it's really great.
Amazing. And I would love to talk a little bit about what you have learned over the years. Like, are there ways of eating that you used to eat early on, or maybe 10 years in, that you would never choose to eat that way now, or certain foods? Like, maybe what are the three top lessons you've learned over such a long period of time being raw?
Okay. One of the books I wrote was called The Daylight Diet, and it's about not eating late at night. So one of the
Mm-hmm.
lessons I've learned is it's not good to eat late at night, even if you're eating a raw food diet. It's not healthy. Of course, if you're sleeping all morning, then maybe you can get away with it. But I like to be as close to nature as possible and the rhythms of nature. So I get up early. I like to go to sleep early. It's not only good not to eat late at night, but it's not good to eat before going to sleep. It's not a healthy practice to have. So that's one thing I'm sure of. That's some things I could say. Some people, you know, just because we can get away with something doesn't mean it's good for us. But some people can do okay doing that for a while, but it's just not a healthy practice. So eating late at night or eating before going to sleep is one thing I've learned. The other thing is the amount of food we eat. I think we need to eat enough, but not too much. And I think a lot of people eat too much, and it's something I definitely did at the beginning of this. So that would be another thing. And then, I could say not necessarily about processed food, but we want to eat as natural as possible. So I'm more into growing gardens and greens. And even though I have a fruit orchard here and I grow a lot of fruits, the greens, it's hard to get good food in general, even from the health food store, because it's being shipped from all over the world. But we need to have good vegetables in our diet. Definitely will help us. And I know there's a lot of people, some people say they're fruitarians, and when we're younger we can get away with just about anything. But an important lesson I learned is we must monitor what we're doing, and the blood work is the real way, not by how we feel, because stimulation can make us feel amazing no matter what we do. But we need to monitor what we're doing by our blood work. Our blood work will tell us if what we're doing is working for us. So
Mm-hmm.
those are some of the important lessons I've learned.
And how often do you think we should check our blood work? And what do you think specifically we should check?
Well, at first, you want to get as much as possible checked to make sure everything's good. But then after that, just keep an eye on the problem areas, and try to keep tweaking your diet, whether it's through supplementation or through food, adding or taking away certain foods. Exercise is an extremely important lesson I've learned, that it's extremely important to exercise, but monitor your blood work. So once you get
Mhm.
as much as you can get tested at first, then from there, focus on the problem areas. And then, as time goes on, that'll get less and less. But of course, the basics, if you go to most test websites, they have a vegetarian profile,
Mhm.
so, or a vegan profile, and they've done the work for us. So I like one that's called Personal Labs. You go there and they have something called a vegan profile. So they've picked out the tests that many vegans struggling.
Mhm.
So take those tests, and if you have an issue with those, then or some of those, just work on those promise areas, or on those
Mhm.
problem areas. But so the work's done for us. And if you go to many of the other blood test websites online, and if you're not doing it online, at least get those tests and tell your doctor, I want these tests done. So, and we know what it is, the basics: vitamin D, vitamin B12, calcium, and things like this, bone, your bones. And, so hormones, testosterone, and things like this. Get these things tested. Another one is cholesterol. People are surprised, but a
Mhm.
lot of vegans have high cholesterol, and that was a big surprise to me. I'm like, how could we have high cholesterol if we don't eat animals?
Mhm.
But there's a whole science behind the way the chemistry of the body works that a lot of people don't understand. And the majority of people I know that are vegans, and even raw vegans, have high cholesterol, believe it or not, and not the good kind. So, but that's not necessarily always a bad thing. So,
Mhm.
so we got to look at, all the aspects of these things, but that's how you can tell what tests we would need.
So you specifically, you did have some tests with high cholesterol, right? I'm just wondering if you did, how did you take steps to reduce the cholesterol then? What did you do to reduce that?
Absolutely, I did, and I was quite surprised. And I remember when I first went raw, that they told me I had high cholesterol. The doctor didn't know how I was eating, and he said you need to cut out eating animal fat. You need to eat more fruits and vegetables. And I just laughed to myself at the time, and that's when I first went raw. But my cholesterol was high, and at the time I was eating like durians. I was eating like 3 durians a day, and a whole
Mm,
bunch of coconut meat. So I figured that was the reason why. But as time went on, the cholesterol came down a little, but not as much. And, as I monitor it, and overeating was a big cause of the cholesterol. And
mm,
believe it or not, sugar, even fruit sugar and cholesterol, there's a connection between the two.
wow.
So we have to get control of our eating, because if you just eat fruit all day, and I exercise a lot, that's another thing, is if you're not exercising as much, that can make a difference. But, I don't want somebody who's a fruitarian watching this now saying, oh, well, I don't have high cholesterol and I eat fruit all day. Good for you. But I'm telling everyone right now that, there's a good chance if you're eating a lot of fruit, you might have high cholesterol. And I know it doesn't make sense. I haven't
Mhm.
eaten animals in many, many years. I know it doesn't make sense, but that's just the way it works. And if you understand the science behind a sugar, even fruit sugar, and the way the body works, sugar
Mhm.
can raise cholesterol.
Absolutely. And I know you mentioned overeating at times, and I've been guilty of that the last few years, even on a raw vegan diet for 5 years, going through a divorce and maybe sometimes emotionally overeating. So, how did you get yourself out of overeating? And do you have some tips for some people out there who are in the habit of overeating, even if it is healthy food, what they can do to get out of that habit?
Sure. Well, the overeating thing really is a personality or emotional situation. It's not a
Mhm.
food situation. Because when you're eating the standard American diet, the reason people often overeat, besides the emotional impact of things, is because the food doesn't have the nutrients we need. So they're just not satisfying the nutrients. So the body's craving more food. However, when you're eating a raw vegan diet, you're eating the best quality food out there, you're meeting your nutritional needs often, but the problem is an emotional level.
Mhm.
Something's missing or something's not being fulfilled or satisfied. Myself, I'm a very disciplined person. I've done a good amount of fasting and so on, but I see a lot of people having issues with overeating before they go raw vegan. Then they go raw vegan and they still have issues with overeating. It's not about the vegan diet and it's not about cooked food. It's about there's these other issues, whether it's a spiritual thing or whether, like you said, relationship things. People try to meet or get pleasure out of food when they're missing certain pleasures in life. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but, I see relationships, people don't like their work, and all these different reasons why people, maybe not knowing it, their life is unfulfilled in certain areas. So they try to get that pleasure from food. And for me, right from the beginning, I know this was a factor when it comes to health. This is something Dr. Fred Bishy had been telling me for years about the overeating aspect and how people get themselves in trouble with this. And I interviewed all these people in this book, The Raw Life, and I still talk to them about this, but that was part of the book, the Daylight Diet, about not eating late at night, which definitely helps the situation. And then now they call it fasting, systemic fasting or systematic fasting, where people try to go as long as they could from nighttime to morning before they eat. So that definitely
Like intermittent fasting, right?
intermittent fasting, yeah, that's another name
Yeah.
for it. That definitely helps the overeating issue. It definitely helps. But one thing we have to know is, like, when I ate a lot at first, but now I eat much less. And Dr. Bishy eats so much less. If we're doing the things the right way, as we get older and our bodies have adjusted and adapted, we can do more with less. So
Mhm.
we don't need a lot of calories. I don't count calories. A lot of people ask me how many calories do you eat, but first of all, when you're starting out or doing this a long time, it makes a difference, and not all calories are the same. So I
Mhm.
don't think counting calories is the thing we got to do. But you know, I do exercise, and I do know I need certain amounts of food, but I also fast on a weekly basis as well. So we don't need as much food as we think we need. And overeating is a big problem. And I see a lot of raw vegans
Mhm.
doing that. And then they miscombine on top of that. So it is a problem.
Mhm. And how do you feel about cleanses, whether it be juice cleansing or a mono fruit cleanse, water fasting, fasting? And I know a lot of people feel like the proper protocol before going into a raw vegan lifestyle, a raw vegan diet, is to do a drastic cleanse first, like to do a 40-day juice fast. Or I'm close friends with a lot of raw vegans who think that's the right path. In your opinion, what do you think is the right path for someone who wants to transition raw? And also, how do you feel about all the fasting?
Well, it depends why they're going raw. Some people are sick and they need something to do immediately, kind of like I did. There
Mm-hmm.
are other people that they're doing great. They just want to do better. So they want to go raw. The easier transition you make, the better time you're going to have with it. But if you're sick, sometimes you don't have that amount of times. And it depends
Mm-hmm.
on a person's their attitude. I'm the type of person that could switch from one day to another and go overall. But other people, they might need that transition time, and that's fine. And another thing is, somebody doesn't have to go all raw, and still get the benefits of raw food. So it's not all or nothing. I know some
Mm-hmm.
people that do 80% raw and they're doing wonderful. And it helps socially with people when you eat a little cooked food and you don't put this thing on you that I got to be all raw. And a lot of the all raw food vegans out there that, they'll just do anything they can to stay all raw, but it's a lot healthier to eat steamed vegetables than it is a raw food candy bar. You might
Mm-hmm.
lose the title that I'm all raw, but it's, we got to be wise about this here. And yeah, so I think, it depends on the individual if they should do it overnight or not. And as for the cleanses, I think cleansing even on a raw vegan diet is important, but the extreme cleansing is very tricky here because most of the people I know that have done extreme 30-40 day juice fast or juice feast or even long water fast, at some point they've gotten off eating healthy completely. It was just too
Mm-hmm.
much for them on an emotional level, too much for them on a physical level. And I don't really think it's necessary for a lot of people to do something that to that length. But cleansing is important. Colonics and enemas are very helpful in certain situations. But I definitely think it makes sense if a person's going to switch over, take your time with it. However, if you feel a need to do it more quickly, it's wise to work with somebody who's done it. But that's the tricky part too, because there are a lot of people out there on YouTube that have been doing it for 6 months and they call themselves a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still learning stuff after all these years. And those people, they don't know a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
so if you have a disease, of course, it's definitely a lot more, you got to be more careful than if you don't,
Mm-hmm.
if that's the reason you're doing this.
And in your opinion, with the colonics and enemas, like I do a colonic now and then. I was doing enemas a few years ago to release parasites. I got a lot of parasites out, and I was like, wow. But then I got a little bit addicted to the enemas because of the euphoric feeling and things like that, and I stopped. And then I started learning more about the gut microbiome, and I think just doing them too often can really mess with your gut microbiome and lead to health problems. So, what are your thoughts on that? And how often do you think is appropriate for an enema or colonic, even if somebody is not sort of in a cleansing phase, if they just want to maintain? I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, doing anything too much is no good, right? So, but when you with enemas and colonics, there are signs that we don't know when we're not healthy. We can't hear our bodies and understand what's going on in our body, but then eventually we can. But one way or another, the person has to get the food out of them, the waste out of them. And hopefully they're going to the bathroom on a regular basis by themselves. And some people are just so grossed out by the idea of enemas and colonics, and so be it. But
Mhm.
if you want to get enemas and colonics, usually on colonics, good colon therapist would be able to give you a series of colonics at first and kind of tell you where you're at. Okay, you're clean now, maybe once a year or something, you can get them, or if you don't feel well, good colon therapists should be able to tell you because they have enough experience by saying, well, this isn't necessary every day or whatever. The enemas, you should be going to the bathroom every day. Some people want to take herbal laxatives. Some people want to run to enemas for that. If you're
Mhm.
not going to the bathroom by yourself without taking anything on a regular basis, something is wrong. So you need to have something till you can figure out what the issue is. And for some people, that's an enema. For me, after all these years, I've only would only take an enema now if for some reason I hadn't went to the bathroom and I wasn't fasting where I should. If I ate a lot one day and then the next day, hey, I haven't went to the bathroom. I definitely got to figure out why, but I'll take an enema in the meantime. And it's not often now that I do them, but there was a time when I did them more. But I definitely agree that you can do them too much, and we got to be careful with that, and careful who we listen to and what people are saying. Too much of anything is not good, but good trained colon therapist should be able to tell you how often and how much for you, because remember, not everyone is in the same situation. So I don't like when people say, oh, everyone should do this, this, and this, and this.
Mhm.
We got to be
So
careful with
true.
that.
Yeah, great points. You're so well spoken, so educated. So again, I'm so grateful to have you on. And I'm wondering, in your opinion, how many bowel movements in a day do you think somebody should have on a healthy diet? I know before I was eating raw vegan, I was having about one a day max, and now I have 2 to 4, and I feel amazing. And I really do think there's a huge connection between your gut and your brain, and that we should be having more frequent bowel movements like that.
Well, absolutely. That's one of the signs of health. People only use it as a sign of health is how they feel. But we got to look at the blood work, how we're sleeping, and what we're able to do, and also our bowel movement. And about how many times a person should go really depends how much they're eating. I don't eat a lot, and I don't go a lot. I go at least once a day, sometimes twice a day. But if a person is eating, and especially overeating, most people are eating 5 or 6 times a day, and they're definitely eating too much. I
Hmm.
would hope they're either having a long bowel movement or they're going a lot, going often. But definitely, you're not going, that's an issue. But it's hard to say about how many, because it depends. How much is coming out when you go, and what
Hmm.
you're eating, and are you on a normal schedule, or do you one day you binge and the next day you fast? That's not healthy.
Hmm.
So it depends. So 2 to 4 times a day, I mean, if you're eating you know a lot of food, that's good, but we want to be careful, because when I had ulcerative colitis, I was going a lot, away a lot, and it's one of the symptoms, and you can get malnourished as well. So you want to just get to understand your body, but and definitely you don't want waste to stay inside your body.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And I'm just wondering, so in a current day right now, what are you currently eating?
Okay, I'll tell you what I eat, but remember, I've been doing this a long time, and if
Mhm.
I would have asked Dr. Fred Bishy what he was eating after 40 years on a raw vegan diet way back then, he would tell me hardly anything. And if I would have attempted to eat in that way when I first started, I might have starved. But
Mhm.
now I can eat a lot less. Even now, I couldn't eat the way I eat now when I started back then. So I'm going to tell you what
Mhm.
I eat, but this isn't necessarily what I'm recommending everyone do.
Mhm.
On average, and now I'll eat my first meal around 11 o'clock in the morning. And I have a lot of fruit trees out here. Well, the first thing I do every day is a green vegetable juice. I do a green vegetable juice. Usually it's greens from my garden. And then around 11 o'clock, it depends what's in season. If I can get fruit off my trees for today, for example, I was at the store. I bought one fruit at the store, and I got some mangoes off my neighbor's tree. Not a much.
Mhm.
I think I had 2 mangoes and 1.5 mamets. That was it. And I might pick some mulberries off my tree later today, but I'll try not to eat again. I might I have a miracle fruit which makes lemon water taste like lemonade. So I like to
Mhm.
have that throughout the day. But the probably the next time I'll eat is around 4 o'clock, and I'll have a big salad with maybe a side recipe. Pretty much
Mhm.
that's it.
Mhm. And what are your thoughts on dried or dehydrated foods? I know for me, they really slow down my digestion. They don't make me feel as good if I'm eating dates or dried crackers or things like that.
Okay, it certainly can't be all someone is eating. Now, at the beginning of a raw vegan diet, I think it's wonderful because it helps people transition to a more fresher diet, because it has a feeling of cooked food, but the enzymes are still in there if they're dehydrated low. But ultimately, dehydrated foods is not the best type of foods to eat, because they're dehydrated and they'll make you dehydrated. However, so I didn't eat dehydrated foods for years, even though I have a dehydrator, but I more recently gotten in the last couple of years got involved in going back to some of the recipes I used to make and so on. So I do have dehydrated foods, but I always make sure I have a fresh salad with it and eat the salad first. And I don't think dried fruit is good by any means at all. But if a certain recipe calls for dried food, I think it's okay. But you got to eat far more fresh foods than the dry food.
Mhm. And what are your thoughts on cacao? I know for me, it's a major stimulant, and I have to pretty much stay away from it 99% of the time.
So I was one of there's a lot of raw foodists that were doing this a good amount of time back in the day, and a lot of people are on a cacao craze. And one of the reasons, I don't know how long you've heard of me before, but one of the
Mhm.
reasons a lot of people haven't is, I don't want to say I got shunned by the raw food community, but I was one of the first people to be outspoken against how toxic and bad cacao is. It's not healthy. It has theobromine, which is a
Mhm.
major stimulant. And it's Jeremy Safran, who was the first person to bring cacao to the raw food community years ago, was the first excited about it. But then he started to realize children and other people are having issues with it. And I used to see people at my lectures having tremendous, they'd come to me shaking, saying, I can't get off this. Please help me. What can I do? And it's
Mhm.
not healthy by any means. If anyone wants that chocolate flavor, you could use carob powder and it tastes it's just wonderful. I don't recommend cacao at all. I don't think it's a health food. It's definitely not a superfood. And David Wolf, the one that was promoting it and doing all this stuff, he knew because Jeremy Safran, myself, and others told him people are having issues with this. It's just not healthy.
Mhm.
And he chose not to listen and to continue to promote it. And so a lot of people are deceived to think it's some super healthy food. It's not good. I don't recommend it. Now, can you get away with doing a little of it? Yes. Now, do people that do it do just a little of it? Probably not. Most people that
Mhm.
do it overdo it. It's not good. I don't recommend it. Again, CAROB, carob powder, can be used in any recipe and make something taste like chocolate.
It tastes I use carob in ice cream now to replace it. It tastes exactly like it, and it satisfies me like that. Cause yeah,
And
the
it's much
chocolate
healthier.
yeah, the cacao, it's just a straight up drug to me. I
That's what
feel
it is.
so depressed. Even if I just were to have one little bar today, for the next 3 or 4 days, I would feel so down and depressed. Like, so
I
I can't.
understand. I
Yeah.
trust me. I've seen it over the years, and I would tell everybody all the time, but nobody wanted to give up their drug and their addiction. And it's interesting. I recently tasted a cacao fruit, not the fruit, not the seeds,
Mhm.
but the actual fruit, which is
Wow.
completely different. That's where all the antioxidants are, and it's actually amazing. But
Wow.
cacao beans, no.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's nice to hear someone else speak out about it because whenever I ask people, they're like, no, it doesn't, it affects me fine, you know?
If you look at my videos on the YouTube channel and on my member website, I have, if you just type in cacao, I have a good amount of information on there about how toxic it is and
Mhm.
people that had negative things with it.
Mhm. Okay, so I'm wondering over the years, over the 25 plus years you've been raw, have you run into any problems? I know that it's common. People even come on my channel. I'm 6 year raw vegan. They say, "Oh, all the problems are going to start when you hit 7 years." I've had no problems. It's totally changed my life. But I'm wondering, people say they run into dental problems, they run into hair loss, they run into weakness, they run into feeling tired, all these things that I haven't yet to experience. So, what do you have to say about that? Have you personally experienced any of that? And what do you have to say to people who say it's promoting a dangerous diet, promoting raw veganism?
Well, first, when most people say they're raw vegan, what people say and what people do are usually two different things. And I don't necessarily believe everyone that says they're 100% raw vegan, but that's up to them and that's their call. And just because you're raw vegan, that's a title. There's not
Mhm.
a definition because you could say you're a vegan, right, and eat noodles all day. So that doesn't mean you're doing it correctly. And people will run into problems if they're just eating dried fruit all day and just not eating any greens and they're eating late at night. People will run into problems. And it gives the raw vegan diet a bad name because it's like, oh, this person's raw vegan and they're running into these issues. But there's a right way and a wrong way to do this. So
Mhm.
absolutely people run into problems because most people that get into this aren't doing it the correct way. I've taken
Mhm.
supplements over the years. I still do. And I monitor my blood work and I eat the things I've learned not to overeat and so on. But most people are overeating. They're not supplementing. They're not watching their blood work. So that's why they're running into problems. It's not because they're on a raw vegan diet. It's the same
Mhm.
thing if people are eating a standard American diet. They'll run into problems if they're not being wise about their health. Myself personally, the only time I ran into problems is after about 12 years on this 100% raw vegan diet and 100% raw vegan, I decided to experiment with cooked food and also raw goat milk and raw
Mhm.
eggs. I wasn't needing it. I was doing fine prior to it. And I just wanted to experiment, always looking for the best health. So for about a year, yeah, for about a year, I would get some raw goat milk or raw eggs, and I would start eating some cooked food, nothing majorly cooked, and that's it. And I noticed I started to experiencing some problems again. My stomach wasn't feeling as well. I was getting a little worried with that because I just started to feel like I did prior to going raw vegan, and just on every level, I didn't feel better. So
Mhm.
I finally gave up the raw goat milk and eggs, and then I felt a little bit better. And then I finally gave up the cooked food. And basically, the only cooked food I was really eating mostly was just potatoes and rice. That was the only ones that I was consuming. But regardless, and steamed vegetables.
Mhm.
But after doing that for about a year or so, I decided nope. And then went back to raw vegan, and I've been fine since then. The blood work over years has been pretty much great in all the common areas. There are some other areas I had to supplement a little bit more. At first, when I was doing this, I realized there was an issue with calcium issues, and it wasn't from not getting it. It might have been from absorbing it, but I also had perfect B12, but my homocysteine was high. And
Mhm.
we don't hear that. We don't understand vitamin B6, vitamin B12, and homocysteine work together.
Mhm.
So everyone says, oh, make sure you get enough B12. And I was B12 supplements, but my homocysteine was high. But so then after looking at that, I temporarily was taking niacin as a supplement to bring the homocysteine down. But that's when I started eating less and following food combining more, not eating late at night. And that had come down as well. And
Mhm.
everything, ended up being fine. So, so yeah.
That's good. And I'm wondering, where do you think you would be right now had you never discovered the raw vegan path?
I don't know.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't think I would be healthy. I think I would have complications of my illness.
Mhm.
During this path, it was very interesting. Something I didn't mention is I got cancer.
No way.
Yes, but I don't want to say it's not an extreme cancer. But when I was 14 years old, I got stabbed in my back with a stick, and I pulled the stick out, and I never pulled it out correctly, and so it was a wound that kept scabbing over, and then it would just fall off and it's scabbing over. So then
Mm.
one year I said, wonder why this keeps scabbing over. And I went to the doctor, it was a skin doctor, and they did a biopsy, and they said you have basal cell carcinoma, which is a skin cancer. And so I was like, wow. And this was after I had been raw for quite amount of time. And some people were saying, "Oh, you're not really raw," or some people were saying, "Oh, if you were healthy, you wouldn't have that." No, it was basically from this. And I only thought you can get skin cancer from the sun at that time. I didn't know you can get it from this.
Mhm.
So, it was a learning experience. So what was I going to do? They wanted to just cut it out. And thankfully so, it's not a serious cancer, as crazy as that sounds, but I experimented and so on. And I ended up doing something called black salve, which is like a black herbal ointment. And after doing that, I have a video on YouTube that has over 1 million views. It fell out and pulled a tumor right out of my skin. It was absolutely
Wow.
crazy. And I still have that. And it healed up. And then maybe 10 years later, I got it tested again and still nothing. It's great. It's fine. But it was a very big learning experience. And that was just from this wound on the outside. And I saw the tumor come out, but it helped me understand how cancer works a lot on the inside. How,
Mhm.
however we get it, what it is, what it looks like. And there are different ways to get rid of it, but herbs do work. But this thing grew over time. And if
Wow.
I didn't do anything about it, it would have continued to grow. And it's a lot more serious. And when it's inside the body, you can't just pull it out through the skin. And hopefully we could figure out a way to deal with it. But definitely, in some cases, surgery might be able to help a person get rid of that. But the raw food diet, maybe it slowed it down from growing too big too quickly. Maybe not. Again, there's so many variables when it comes to health, not just the food we're eating. And
Mhm.
it was a big wake up call and an experience for me, and just thankful I did something about it and I didn't just ignore it.
Mhm. Absolutely, me too. And I'm wondering, do you think the raw food diet is right for everyone or no?
That depends from what viewpoint.
Mhm.
So is it going to help everyone? If they do it the right way, it's the best diet for everyone, I feel, if it's done the right way. Are
Mhm.
many people willing to put the study into it to learn how to do it and willing to do it? No. So I don't think it's the best for everyone from that viewpoint. If you're not willing to think about the body and how it works and so on, I know a good amount of people that fail at it. And basically, it wasn't the raw vegan diet; it was that they just weren't, like I said, they weren't monitoring their blood work. They weren't taking supplements and doing these things. And some people say, if the diet's so great, why do we need supplements?
Mhm.
Well, there's several reasons. We got our bodies so messed up beforehand, and there are some foods people aren't able to get. I'm growing my own food here, but some people don't have that opportunity. And
Mhm.
supplements help. I just this morning I pulled off a bunch of moringa off my tree and I'm powdering it now. I'm going to put that, and if I don't have fruit available of my trees, I might do a smoothie. So I'll put that in the smoothie. So yeah, so it's not for everyone because you can get yourself in trouble. You can do a deficiency if you're not getting enough food. You can also overconsume the fruit and actually create a problem. So no,
Mhm.
I don't think it's for everyone, but I think the raw foods are best for everyone.
Mhm. And what do you think about the importance of eating organic versus non-organic?
I think it's becoming more and more important as our bodies are just overloaded with so many chemicals to begin with. Some foods aren't as important as others. And as I'm growing, I'm learning so much about foods as I'm growing foods. I mean, I grow avocados and I see, don't really need a lot of pesticides and sprays and stuff. So an unorganic avocado might not be as bad as like leafy greens. 100% they should be organic.
Mhm.
So, and it's not always the spray on the outside. Sometimes it's what's in it. But again, doing research on the foods, there's a foods called the Dirty Dozen, which 100% should be organic. And then there's other foods where it's best that they're organic, but if they're not, it's not as bad.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I'm wondering, is your family raw vegan? And what advice would you have for somebody who's trying to be raw vegan or wants to be raw vegan, but they find it harder for them because their family and the people around them are not?
Okay, this is another situational thing when people are like, if the child living at home and their parents are buying the food and don't agree with it, then yeah, it's a big challenge for them. But if people do the research and they have the opportunity to the kitchen, they can. A big problem I've gotten over the years is when
Mhm.
a wife tells me, "Oh, my husband doesn't want to eat this way," and then I got to make
Mhm.
two dinners. Well, great for that lady that she's willing to do that,
Mhm.
but it's there's other situational things that'll determine if it's the way to go for somebody. For myself, I currently eat 100% raw vegan. My wife doesn't eat 100% raw vegan, but she's very health minded.
Mhm.
And my children are they spend half of the time with me and half of the time with their mother, and they were eating healthy when they were younger here, but they kind of got corrupted in their taste buds from being
Mhm.
over there. So now they're getting older. So I've made it priority to me to teach them and then let them make their own decisions. So I told them, look, I want to watch some health movies with you, and then I'm going to let you decide. But you have to see these movies first, because as parents, I think it's important for us. And when the kids are younger, it's one thing, but it's important for us to teach our children, and what they want to do with that knowledge, they have to figure out, but it's our responsibility to teach them. And so, yeah, so currently I'm the only one here that eats 100% raw vegan.
Mhm. Same within my household. And I'm wondering, do you have any tips for people out there who say it is so expensive? Who are like, this diet is just ridiculous expensive. I can't do it. Do you have any tips for how to do it on a budget?
Well, it doesn't have to be expensive. And I always said, if you're going to go to raw food restaurants every night, it's going to cost you a lot of money. For me, I've learned to grow my own food, and and something that's very important to me is sprouts. And I have a whole bunch of a tray of sprouts growing right there. I have sunflower, I have pea sprouts, and I have broccoli sprouts. Growing sprouts is very inexpensive, and you don't need a yard outside to grow stuff. So it can be expensive, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, bananas, even organic bananas, are very inexpensive. If you're not overeating, you're not spending a lot of money.
Mhm. Mhm.
And but you can grow salad in the house and so on. So it can be very expensive, but it doesn't have to be.
Mhm.
So, and for me, it's not. I mean, there are times it was, and there were times I was going to raw food restaurants, but it doesn't have to be expensive. And, you can do this. I mean, I love it. And even before I was growing my own food, I used to go around the neighborhood and get people's coconuts from their trees.
Mhm.
And if people in the neighborhood had fruit, I'd find a way to work out something with them where I can get it. So it doesn't have to be expensive. So.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I'm wondering, you've been in this field for a while now. I mean, over 25 years raw, connected to a lot of people, seen a lot of things. I'm wondering, what's the first person that comes to mind for the biggest transformation of somebody you've seen in raw foods over the years?
I mean, I've seen people start at this at 300 pounds and lose over 150 pounds. So from a
Mhm.
physical transformation, that's what I've seen.
Mhm.
Myself personally, I, was a different person on every level. Prior to doing this, I had no spiritual life. I was just all about the physical and sports and so on. But I've gained a spiritual life, which has just completely changed my life completely. And I've seen that in a good amount of people.
Mhm.
And it's helped me tremendously. So much so I actually wrote a book about this, because when I was writing all my books and everything, I always talked about fasting, and I talked about living in old age, and also living healthy, and also the best foods for man, fruits and vegetables. And somebody told me at one of my talks, they said, there's a book that talks about fruits and vegetables being the food for man, and also about how old people can live eating this way, and so on. And I said, give it to me, I want to read it. And it was the Bible.
Mhm.
And I read it, and I was blown away how much amazing information was in there about the raw food diet and health. And I made that transition, and that was even a bigger transition than physical with the food. And I've seen that transition in a good amount of people. So I've seen people with cancer get better from cancer. I see that all the time. There's a, so just recently, a man, the doctors wanted to cut him open and take out his bladder. He had cancer. He did a coaching session with me. He went on astaxanthin, which is something I highly promote, and he got better from cancer. And the
Mhm.
doctors are amazed. But at first, I used to be amazed, and now I'm just thankful. But I see it all the time.
Mhm. And speaking about spiritual, I know I interviewed Matt Monarch, and I know you did recently as well. I haven't watched your interview yet. I can't wait to watch it. I'm going off of everything for 30 days, so I'm on my social media detox. But I mean, you might have already said in your interview, but I'm curious. I know Matt attributes everything happening to spiritual lessons. Do you agree with that? Or do you think that there were other reasons for him running into all the colon problems over the years and having his colon removed?
So I discussed all this stuff in the interview with him. I think from a spiritual standpoint, there's a lot of different paths out there.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of different paths out there from a spiritual standpoint. And from what I've seen, after I was sick and I got better, I experienced all of them. I pretty much all of the major ones. I kind of dabbled in all of them, and nothing came close to me than Jesus, Yeshua,
Mhm.
and the Bible. Nothing came close to me from that. I've seen people get themselves in a big bad situation on a spiritual level by dabbling in these other belief systems and so on. And I definitely think Matt had some spiritual warfare going on at the time, and still does, that contributed. But I don't think it was the only reason why
Mhm.
his situation happened. And we discussed that in this video. But yes, I think everyone that's going through a disease on one level or another is being attacked spiritually. And until they figure that out, they're not going to be completely healed.
Mhm. And what other practices do you believe in for maintaining a positive life outside of the raw living foods? Like, do you believe in meditating, or what do you think people can do to sort of live a positive, more positive life and live a less stress, less fear-based life?
Well, the first part with the positive, I mean, positive and negative is all based on one's perception of what positive or what's good or
Mhm.
bad.
True.
So, but as for less stress, that's another story. How do
Mhm.
we deal with stress or have less stress? And for me, I mean, the principles that are found in the Bible talk about having one complete day of rest. It's called the Sabbath. So, one day a week, I fast. I don't eat any food. I rest my body on every level. I don't do any work on every level. So, one day a week, I do that. And see, I understand that our Creator made our body.
Mhm.
And when I bought a new car, it had a glove compartment, and it had a book that said, "This is how to keep the car working well." And I believe that's what the Bible is for our bodies, because we have a creator that created us. And the Sabbath is a day of complete rest. And some people want to call what they do meditation, but I pray. And praying is really speaking to the one true creator on a regular basis. Well, some
Mhm.
people pray to whatever their belief system is. Some people might pray to a picture on a wall. Some people pray to different gods out there. But, I pray to the one they call Jesus, and I hear from him. And for me, that assures me and gives me a great assurance that it's all going to be okay. And it takes away a lot of stress.
Mhm.
So from a physical standpoint, I I love to exercise, and I think it's really important to exercise to stay healthy.
Mhm. And how important do you like? I live in Toronto. I still make the raw food lifestyle work here, even though it can be winter time. I mean, I still feel so much better on raw living foods in the winter here than if I were to go to cooked food. But how important do you think it is to live in a climate that's maybe more sunshine, more in tune with our body?
No, it's not too important because I lived in New York for a good amount of time doing this, and Dr. Fred Bishy's in New York. He's been on a raw vegan diet for 60 years.
Mm-hmm.
So discipline will help you overcome that because you're not out in the cold weather all the time. You're in your warm apartment or house.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely helpful if you could be out here in nature and be where it's always warm. Cold weather, I don't like cold weather on any level,
Mm-hmm.
but you can do it without being you could do it in a cold environment. Definitely, it's more natural to eat this way and live in a warmer environment, but you can do it in a colder environment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And do you think that some raw vegans or fruitarians age more because they also, a lot of them are a huge fan of the sun? I know a lot of
No,
people ask me that because you see some and people say, well, it's an aging diet. Look at some of them. But then they say maybe it's because some of them are just major sun worshippers too. Or why do you think some raw vegans seem to age a lot more than others?
well, I think because they're not doing the raw vegan diet the right way when it comes to a food
Mm-hmm.
standpoint. You know, most of them aren't exercising. Most of them are eating either too much fruit or too little food in general. They're not supplementing, and it's not a healthy diet if you're not going to do this the right way. It's also not a healthy diet to switch back and forth, to go all raw for a month and then go all cooked for a month. That's You're better off just staying cooked in a case like that.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of practices aren't, we say a raw vegan diet, but it's really like a raw vegan lifestyle. And
Mm-hmm.
most people aren't living a healthy raw vegan lifestyle. So that's what's contributing to the aging. Many of people I know died on a raw vegan diet or while they were eating a raw vegan diet, but it wasn't the diet per se, it was the way they were doing it. We know people that don't eat raw vegan that age too. The
Mm-hmm.
sun, definitely, like we said earlier, you can overdo anything.
Mm-hmm.
And if you overdo the sun, it can definitely cause wrinkles in your skin, and it can cause maybe even skin cancer. But if you get the right amount, you're going to look wonderful. And we also have to think about the stories we hear and the things we see. People tell me all the time, I just made a video about this, how weak I look, and I don't look energetic, and I exercise more than, with no problem. Somebody may, oh, I probably can't even ride a bike and I'm jogging miles. It's like a lot of people have their own perception of what they think health looks like and doesn't look like. And so, if somebody says that you don't look good, who cares what they have to say? Just make sure you're doing the right things and you're going to be fine.
Mm-hmm. Good advice. And I'm wondering, over the years, what is the greatest challenge you feel like you have faced from being a raw vegan?
That's a good question. I never struggled with the cravings for cooked food. I never do.
Mm-hmm.
And if I did, I would eat cooked food. I think somebody could eat cooked food and be healthy. I've never struggled with that. I've never struggled with the going out and hanging out with people because they ate raw. Didn't eat raw. I never struggled with that. What challenges? I have to think about that some more. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, it's been pretty much. I've been thankful to have a good guideline for this and help me. I
Mm-hmm.
guess I haven't had. I can't think of many challenges that I've
That's good.
overcome doing it. Yeah,
Exactly.
I
Exact.
mean,
Same here.
I never questioned it. Even when I got my skin cancer, I never
Mm-hmm.
questioned. Even when I wasn't feeling well again from going back off the diet, I knew right away. I've been eating raw all these years. I've been fine. So it wasn't really a challenge for me. So I don't.
Mm-hmm. And I would love to just talk to you about water quickly. I don't think enough people talk about water. Some people ask, do you still need water if you're eating all these living foods? How much water and what type of water? I think there's a lot of confusion out there. What water is best? Distilled water, spring water. There's also these high tech water options like Kangen water. So, in your opinion, in your experience, what do you think is the best type of water? How much water? And yeah.
In my experience, the best type of water would be natural spring water from a clean spring that you can get yourself. It's not realistic. Most people can't get that.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing reverse osmosis water for years, and I think that was what caused my calcium issues, and the leaching calcium was from the type of water I was drinking. So I don't recommend exclusively distilled water or reverse osmosis water. Now, It's the cleanest water out there, but because it's devoid of minerals, I don't think that'd be the best. Some people would say, well, that's crazy. If you're looking for your minerals from your water, then you're not eating the right diet. And I agree from that standpoint. But if you're drinking water consistently that doesn't have the minerals in there, your body's going to pull them out. And so I don't recommend distilled or reverse osmosis. All those, the Kagan waters and all those waters, I
Hmm.
think they have some healing benefits to them, but I don't think they're necessary 100% of the time. I think what I use now is a Berkey, and it's a filter, and so it's a filtered water. But it's a great question because we're so far away from where we should be in nature, where we should be living near a spring and getting the best water from a spring, and we're not. And that is creates a little bit of an issue. I use a Berkey, a filtered water right now, and and if you have a Berkey or you get one of them, and it's not just a little filter, it's a major kind of filter. It's really cool, but if you get one, you got to test it often to make sure it's actually doing the job. So test it every 6 months or so. So that's what I currently use, and I definitely seen a difference in my blood work when I stopped using the reverse osmosis water. So as
Wow.
what do we even need water? Well, if we're eating a good diet of fruits, juicy fruits and juicy vegetables, and drinking green juices,
Hmm.
we don't need as much water. We
Hmm.
definitely don't need as much water. If you're eating dehydrated foods and you're eating a lot of cooked food, you're going to need more water. So we don't need much water, but do we need no water at all? Well, I mean, that's something a person will have to try and monitor if they want to do. But, I don't want to see somebody overeating on fruit just so they can get water.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I would love to hear some advice you might have for somebody out there who is struggling to sort of get control of their cravings and stick to a raw living foods diet. So if they want to try this lifestyle, but they just have a hard time like kicking the bad habits.
Well, a lot of times people contact me and they say, "Oh, I know what to do. I just can't do them." I said, "Well, you don't need a nutritionist, you need a psychiatrist." It's a mental thing, an emotional thing. It's not to eat this way is easy, but the emotional aspects of it, that's where people need to work on and
Mhm.
figure out. So it's a discipline issue. And usually, we have to love something enough to be disciplined at it. And creating good habit is just doing something consistently for 30 days in a row or something, and you'll create a new good habit. So we got to
Mhm.
get rid of our bad habits and create new habits. Like one of the most addictive things people do is eat late at night. So when I
Mhm.
tell people, start following a daylight diet and not to eat late at night, even though they're not hungry late at night, they're just used to doing that. So now you got to create a habit where you don't do that. So
Mhm.
something that I was very addicted to for a long time was my cell phone, but I know how bad and toxic that is on every level. So I've created a new habit, and I'm limiting my time on the cell phone so much, and it's just an amazing thing. So it's if you're not able to do a raw vegan diet because your addictions or your habits, create a new addiction or habit. It's not the food. It's not the food. And I know people that get up every single morning in the cold weather, the rain and the snow to walk their dog. And for me, I don't love doing something like that, so I wouldn't
Mhm.
be able to do that on a regular basis. So you have to love this, and I love feeling better than feeling sick. And I know this is a way that's going to help me. I've created a habit of getting up early and going to exercise because I know this is going to help my body. So you got to create a new habit and just transform. But discipline is something a lot of people lack because the way they're brought up in today's society, in today's world, and they're
Mhm.
looking for quick pleasures and things like this. And I understand. Before I used to get into the Bible and stuff, I was so self-centered, and when I was able to let go and just be thankful and slow down, it really changed the way I thought about these things. But it's about discipline, and we need to be disciplined for healthy things and get away from the unhealthy things. A lot of people are doing a lot of things out there. Another thing is sleep. We didn't talk about sleep, but it's extremely important. When you eat
Mhm.
healthy, you need less sleep, but you still need sleep, enough sleep. And if you don't get enough sleep, you're not going to be a happy person. And if you're
Mhm.
not a happy person, chances are you're not going to be successful at being disciplined. So
Mhm.
sleep is something that's tremendously important. And that goes back to not eating late at night and having a clear mind and being able to sleep.
Mhm. And what do you say to someone who's been trying this lifestyle for a while and they're experiencing some symptoms that are not so great. Maybe they've been doing it for a few months and they're like, I'm not feeling as good as these other people I'm watching online. Like, do you think that it's always detox, or do you think it's just they're not doing things wrong? Or what do you think on how can someone differentiate between like this is detox or they're not doing it wrong, or maybe it's not a lifestyle that's meant for them?
I know a lot of people don't have money for coaching or something like this, but
Mhm.
I've spoken to a lot of people that thought what they were doing was healthy.
Mhm.
And then after talking to me, they realized that, wow, I guess that's not really that healthy. So it's good to have somebody there to guide you and help you. So that it's helpful if you can do that. Now, like there are supplements you could take to help to temporarily get past these moments to help figure out what the issue is. I know a lot of people that have depression. I know a lot of people that have issues on so many different levels, but there's so many other factors, and so many relationships and all these different things people go through that contribute to poor health problems. Is not only the food, but if you are
Mhm.
experiencing problems with the food, the first thing is to look at detox. And the second thing is to look at what are the symptoms and monitor your blood work. Most people will find that their blood work is an issue. See, when I work with people, that's what I talk to them about. Are they taking any medications? Are there side effects? Are they, have they been diagnosed with anything? Because if you
Mhm.
have been, it might be a little different, your transition. It could be allergies. It could be so many factors of why this isn't working.
Mhm.
And so you want to figure it out, and people need to address it one way or the other. If something's not working, address it. But you can eat a raw vegan diet long term if that's what you want to do, and you can definitely do it, and it can work. And no matter what you do in life, you're going to run into situations, and how you deal with them is going to determine between success and failure.
So true. And I'm wondering regarding protein, do you think it's important that as raw vegans, we need to be aware of the level of plant proteins we're consuming, or do you think it's important to consume protein powders or things like that?
It's not important to consume protein powders. It's important to get enough of what we do need. And monitoring our blood work
Mhm.
should be able to tell us if we have enough of what we need. Exercising should be able to tell us. Body should be
Mhm.
able to tell us, or a weight. So if somebody's overweight, they might have a thyroid issue. If so, or they're eating too much. But muscles, you got to exercise to build muscle, but you definitely need protein. But there's more than enough protein in raw vegan foods. You got to
Mhm.
eat them, but there's more than enough protein. Broccoli, you see, protein comes from essential amino acids.
Mhm.
The reason why everyone thinks meat is a great source of protein is it has all those essential amino acids in one source.
Mhm.
But it's of the lowest quality. Your body has to work so hard to get that protein and get rid
Mhm.
of all that waste. The fruits and vegetables that have those essential amino acids, there aren't many fruits and vegetables that have them all in one source. But if you eat a
Mhm.
good variety, you'll be getting them all. So eat a
Mhm.
good variety of the fruits and vegetables, and you can get them. Broccoli has a good amount. Greens have a good amount. Nuts and seeds have a good amount. You can get protein on a raw vegan diet. And I mean, look, I go and I exercise and I lift weights. And, if I wasn't getting any protein, I wouldn't be able to do that. And
Mhm.
that's a good way to tell if you are or you're not. So,
Good
but
point. It really is. Good point.
yeah,
And
so
I'm wondering
people,
over the years, like over these 25 plus years, you've studied so much about the diet, about the body, the foods. You've seen so much as far as other people's experiences goes. You've learned so much as far as your own experience goes. Do you feel like you've got it all figured out, or do you feel like you're still learning more and you have so much more to learn in the years to come in your life?
100%, I'm still learning 100%. And we don't know what we don't know.
Mhm.
And I continually talk to Dr. Fred Bishie, and I learn new things from him, or he's told me something many times over the years, and I finally figure it out, or I finally get it. And
Mhm.
so I'm always learning. I know I have a lot more to learn, and I'm happy where I'm at. I think I've learned more than the average person, but I definitely have more to learn.
Yeah, and you've helped so many people. And this has been so wonderful. So, Paul, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I'm sure my viewers will absolutely love you and absolutely love this. And where can everybody find you who doesn't know where you're at currently?
I'm on all social media. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. And my YouTube channel is Raw Life Health Show. And my website is rawlifehealthshow.com. definitely. Those are the places people can find me.
Okay, perfect. And I'll link everything down below as well. And yeah, thanks
Besides,
again.
besides the raw food, I also have a channel for growing food and growing fruit trees and so on. That's called Fruitful Trees, so people can check that out. And if people are interested in the Bible and Bible topics, I have Cora Life Ministries, which is another channel where people can learn about that. And I could tell people real quick, I have my Daylight Diet book.
Yeah,
Excellent. Highly recommend it. This book has interviews with a bunch of raw vegans that I
amazing.
wrote a long time ago. And I have 8 books total, but these are just 3 of them. And this is health according to the scriptures. I took all the health verses out of the Bible and I put them in here for people to see. So
Incredible. That's fantastic. Amazing. I'm sure that's helped so many people. And I'll link as much as I can down below as well for you. Yeah.
well, thank you very much for taking the time to do this. And thank you for all you're doing for the raw vegan community and keep up the great work.
Thanks, Paul. It's a pleasure. And to the viewers, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much. Bye.